Get a real job, Madison. Stop chasing fantasies. My mother's voice cut through the phone like a blade, sharp, final, dismissive. I sat in my tiny studio apartment in Seattle, Washington, staring at the acceptance letter on my desk. The one nobody in my family knew existed. It was from the executive training program at Pacific Northwest Financial Group, one of the most competitive banking programs in the country. Out of 3,000 applicants, they'd chosen 25. I was one of them. My name is Madison Riley, and I'm 23 years old. For most of my life, I've been the disappointing daughter in a family obsessed with one person, my older brother, Connor. He was the golden child, the star athlete. The charismatic one who could walk into any room and own it within minutes. The one whose every achievement was celebrated like he'd just won an Olympic medal. Me? I was background noise. The cautious one, the boring one, the daughter who studied too much and dreamed too small, at least according to them. The real job my mother was referring to was a secretary position at my uncle's insurance company. $28,000 a year. No benefits, no growth potential. Just answering phones and filing paperwork in a windowless office in Spokane. Madison, are you listening to me? My mother's voice yanked me back to the conversation. I'm listening, Mom. Your uncle is doing you a huge favor offering you this position. He doesn't have to hire you, but he's family, and he's willing to give you a chance despite your lack of experience. Lack of experience. That phrase made my jaw clench. I just graduated summa cum laude from the University of Washington with a degree in finance and economics. I'd completed 2 internships, one at a regional bank and another at an investment firm. I'd networked relentlessly, attended every career fair, and polished my resume until it gleamed. But none of that mattered to my family. They saw what they wanted to see. A nervous girl who wasn't as confident or impressive as her perfect brother. When can you start? My mother pressed. Your uncle needs to know by Friday. I need to think about it, I said, even though there was nothing to think about. I wasn't taking that job. Think about what? Madison, you're not in a position to be picky. You just graduated. You have student loans. You need income. This is a stable opportunity. Stable. That word again. My parents were obsessed with stability, with playing it safe, with taking the path that involved the least risk and the smallest dreams. Connor, of course, got a free pass to take risks. When he decided to move to Los Angeles to pursue acting, my parents threw him a going-away party and told everyone how brave and talented he was. When I mentioned I wanted to work in finance, my father laughed and said, "That's a man's world, sweetheart. You sure you can handle it?" "I'll let Uncle Rick know by Friday," I said, lying through my teeth. Good. Oh, and Connor's coming home next weekend. He booked a national commercial. Can you believe it? A national commercial. We're throwing him a celebration dinner on Saturday. You'll be there, right? I'll try. You'll try? Madison, this is important. Your brother is doing incredible things. The least you can do is show up and support him. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her that I'd been supporting Connor my entire life, that I'd sat through countless football games, award ceremonies, and family dinners where every conversation revolved around him. That just once, I wanted someone to ask about my achievements, my goals, my life. But I didn't say any of that. I just said, "I'll be there, Mom." She hung up without saying goodbye. I set my phone down and looked at the acceptance letter again. Pacific Northwest Financial Group. Executive Training Program. Starting salary, $75,000. Benefits package. Mentorship opportunities. A clear path toward leadership. This wasn't just a job. It was everything I'd worked for. Everything I'd dreamed about since I was 15 years old and realized I loved numbers, strategy, and the challenge of understanding how money moved through the world. But my family didn't know about the letter. They didn't know about the 3 rounds of interviews I'd completed. They didn't know about the assessment tests, the presentations, or the final callback where I'd stood in front of a panel of executives and explained why I deserved a spot in their program. I hadn't told them because I'd learned years ago that sharing my accomplishments with my family was pointless. They either ignored me or found a way to make it about Connor. When I made the dean's list my freshman year, my mother said, "That's nice, honey," and then spent the next hour talking about Connor's football scholarship. When I won a case competition my junior year, my father patted my shoulder and said, "Good for you," before turning the conversation back to Connor's latest audition. I stopped trying after that. I stopped sharing. I stopped expecting them to care. And honestly, it was easier that way. But now, sitting in my apartment with this letter in my hands, I realized something. I didn't just want to accept this position. I wanted to succeed at it. I wanted to prove to myself, and maybe someday to them, that I was capable of so much more than answering phones in a dead-end office. I picked up my phone and typed out an email to the program director at Pacific Northwest Financial Group. "Dear Ms. Hernandez, I am honored to accept my position in the executive training program. I look forward to starting on June 15th. Thank you for this incredible opportunity. Sincerely, Madison Riley." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I sat back, took a deep breath, and smiled. For the first time in my life, I was choosing my own path, and I didn't need my family's permission to do it. Growing up as Connor Riley's sister was like living in someone else's shadow, permanent, cold, and impossible to escape. Connor was 3 years older than me, and from the time I could form memories, he was the center of everything. He was athletic, outgoing, and naturally gifted at making people like him. Teachers loved him. Coaches loved him. Our parents worshipped him. I, on the other hand, was quiet. I preferred books to sports. I got nervous in social situations. I had a small group of close friends rather than a massive social circle. And while I was smart, really smart, that didn't matter in my family. Intelligence wasn't flashy. It didn't come with trophies or newspaper articles or college scouts showing up at the house. My parents never said I wasn't good enough. But they didn't have to. Their actions made it painfully clear. When Connor scored the winning touchdown at a high school football game, my parents invited everyone they knew to celebrate. They rented out a section of a local restaurant, bought a cake, and spent the entire evening toasting to his talent and future. When I got accepted into the honors program at my high school, my mother said, "Congratulations, sweetie," and then asked if I could help her plan Connor's birthday party. When Connor got his football scholarship to Washington State University, my father cried actual tears of pride. He called every relative we had and bragged about his son, the athlete, the star, the future NFL player. When I got a full academic scholarship to the University of Washington, covering tuition, room, and board, my father said, "That's great, Madison. I'm glad you won't have to take out too many loans." Too many loans. As if the full ride I'd earned through years of perfect grades and grueling preparation wasn't impressive. As if it didn't matter because it wasn't a football scholarship. College was when I really started to separate myself from my family. I stopped going home every weekend. I stopped calling just to chat. I focused on my classes, my internships, and building a network of professors and professionals who actually saw my potential. I worked part-time at a campus coffee shop to cover my personal expenses. I joined the finance club and eventually became president. I volunteered as a tutor for underclassmen struggling with economics courses. I attended workshops, conferences, and networking events. I built a life that had nothing to do with Connor or my parents' obsession with him. Meanwhile, Connor's football career fizzled out during his junior year. He tore his ACL during a game, had surgery, and never fully recovered. The NFL dreams evaporated. The scout stopped calling. By the time he graduated, he had a communications degree and no clear plan for the future. That's when he decided to move to Los Angeles to become an actor. My parents supported him completely. They helped him move. They sent him money every month to cover rent. They told everyone that Connor was pursuing his passion and following his dreams. When I suggested during a family dinner that maybe Connor should get a regular job while auditioning, my mother looked at me like I'd suggested he commit a crime. "Madison, your brother is an artist. Artists need time to develop their craft." "He also needs to pay rent," I said. "That's what family is for. We support each other." Except they didn't support me. Not really. When I needed a laptop for school, I saved up and bought it myself. When I needed professional clothes for internships, I thrifted and borrowed. When I needed advice about career paths, I talked to my professors because my parents couldn't be bothered to understand what I was studying. By my senior year, I'd accepted that I was on my own. And honestly, it made me stronger. I didn't have anyone to fall back on, so I learned to rely on myself. I didn't have anyone cheering me on, so I became my own cheerleader. When graduation came, my parents attended. But the entire ceremony, my mother kept checking her phone, waiting for updates from Connor about an audition he had that day. When they called my name and I walked across the stage, summa cum laude, with honors in both finance and economics, my father took a picture but didn't look up from his phone afterward. After the ceremony, we went to dinner. I thought maybe, just maybe, this would be my moment, my chance to be celebrated. Instead, Connor FaceTimed from Los Angeles to tell us he'd booked a minor role in a commercial. My parents spent the entire dinner congratulating him, asking questions about the shoot, and telling him how proud they were. I sat there, diploma in my bag, honors cords still around my neck, completely invisible. That night, alone in my apartment, I made a decision. I was done trying to earn their approval. Done competing for attention I'd never get. Done hoping they'd see me. I was going to build a life so successful, so impressive, that their indifference wouldn't matter anymore. The executive training program at Pacific Northwest Financial Group was the most intense professional experience of my life. It started with orientation. 25 of us gathered in a sleek conference room on the 32nd floor of their downtown Seattle headquarters. We were the best and the brightest, handpicked from thousands of applicants, Ivy League graduates, former consultants, people with MBAs and years of experience. And then there was me, 23 years old, fresh out of undergrad, terrified but determined not to show it. The program director, Carmen Hernandez, was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. She'd spent 30 years in banking, worked her way up from teller to senior vice president, and had a reputation for being brilliant and ruthless. "Welcome," she said, looking at each of us in turn. "You're here because you have potential. But potential means nothing without execution. Over the next 18 months, you will rotate through every department in this organization: retail, banking, commercial lending, investment services, risk management, operations. You will learn this business from the ground up. And at the end of the program, some of you will be offered permanent positions, some of you will not. The difference will be how hard you work and how quickly you learn." No pressure. My first rotation was in retail banking, working at one of the branch locations in Capitol Hill. It was humbling. I'd studied finance theory, portfolio management, and economic policy. But now I was learning how to process deposits, open checking accounts, and explain the difference between savings accounts and money market accounts to customers. It wasn't glamorous, but it was necessary. I needed to understand how the bank functioned at every level if I was ever going to lead. My branch manager, a woman named Keisha, was patient and kind. She taught me how to handle difficult customers, how to identify potential fraud, and how to build relationships that turned one-time visitors into lifelong clients. Banking isn't just about numbers, she told me one afternoon. It's about trust. People trust us with their money, their futures, their dreams. Never forget that. I worked that rotation for 3 months. Then I moved to commercial lending, where I learned how to evaluate business loan applications, assess risk, and structure deals. Then investment services, where I shadowed financial advisors and learned about retirement planning, wealth management, and market analysis. Each rotation was a crash course in a different aspect of banking, and each one made me hungrier to learn more. Meanwhile, my family had no idea what I was doing. When my mother called, which wasn't often, she'd ask how the job search was going. I'd tell her I was working, which was technically true. She'd say, "That's good, honey," and then launch into an update about Connor. Connor had booked another commercial. Connor had gotten an agent. Connor was going to auditions for TV shows. I'd listen, say congratulations, and hang up feeling both relieved and sad. Relieved that they weren't paying attention to me. Sad that they didn't care enough to ask. 6 months into the program, I got my first big break. I was rotating through risk management, working under a director named Paul Mendoza. My job was to analyze loan portfolios, identify potential defaults, and recommend strategies to mitigate loss. One afternoon, Paul handed me a file for a mid-sized manufacturing company that had applied for a $2 million line of credit. "Tell me if we should approve this," he said. I spent the next 2 days digging into their financials, revenue trends, cash flow statements, debt ratios, industry benchmarks. The numbers looked solid on the surface, but when I dug deeper, I found inconsistencies. Their accounts receivable were growing faster than their revenue, which suggested they weren't collecting payments efficiently. Their inventory turnover was slowing, which meant they were holding more stock than they could sell. I wrote a detailed report recommending we deny the application unless they could provide additional collateral and demonstrate improved cash management. Paul read my report, then looked up at me with something that might have been respect. "This is good work, Madison. Really good. You caught things our initial analyst missed. Thank you. I'm forwarding this to the credit committee, and I'm putting you on the presentation team. You'll walk them through your findings." My heart nearly stopped. The credit committee was made up of senior executives, including the chief credit officer. This was a huge opportunity. The presentation was a week later. I prepared obsessively. I rehearsed my talking points. I anticipated questions. I practiced staying calm under pressure. When the day came, I walked into the boardroom in my best suit, carrying a portfolio of documents and a confidence I didn't entirely feel. I presented for 15 minutes, walking the committee through my analysis. I explained the risks, backed up my recommendations with data, and answered every question they threw at me. When I finished, the chief credit officer, a man named Douglas Brennan, nodded slowly. "You're right. We would have been exposed here. Good catch." They denied the loan. 2 months later, that manufacturing company filed for bankruptcy. Douglas called me into his office after the news broke. "You saved us $2 million, he said. "That's the kind of judgment we need around here. Keep it up." That was the moment I realized I wasn't just surviving this program. I was excelling. 8 months into the program, my mother called with an announcement. "Madison, we're having a family reunion in Spokane next month. Everyone's going to be there. Aunts, uncles, cousins. Your father and I want you to come." I was working on a project presentation and barely paying attention. "I'll see if I can make it." "You have to make it. Connor's going to be there and he's bringing some big news. We want the whole family together." Of course it was about Connor. "What's the big news?" I asked. "He's been cast in a recurring role on a TV show. It's a legal drama. He'll be playing a paralegal. It's a real break, Madison. We're so proud of him." That's great, Mom. I'm happy for him. So you'll come? I thought about saying no, but part of me was curious. I hadn't seen my extended family in over a year, and I wondered if anyone would even notice I'd been gone. I'll be there. Wonderful. Oh, and Madison? Dress nicely. We're taking a family photo. The reunion was on a Saturday afternoon at my aunt's house in Spokane. When I arrived, the place was packed. Cousins running around, aunts gossiping in the kitchen, uncles watching a baseball game in the living room. And right in the center of it all, holding court like a celebrity, was Connor. He looked good. Tanned, fit, confident. He was wearing designer jeans and a leather jacket, and he had this effortless charisma that made people gravitate toward him. When he saw me, he grinned and pulled me into a hug. Maddie, you made it. Hey, Connor, congrats on the TV show. Thanks. It's not a huge role yet, but it's recurring. 6 episodes guaranteed, and if people like my character, they might make me a regular. It's insane. That's really awesome. He leaned in, lowering his voice. How's the job hunt going? Mom said you've been struggling to find something? I blinked. I'm not struggling, I have a job. Oh, yeah? Doing what? I'm in a training program at a financial firm. He nodded, clearly not that interested. Cool. Well, good for you. Hey, come meet my girlfriend. Her name's Amber. She's an actress too. He dragged me over to meet a stunning blonde who smiled politely but looked at me like I was part of the furniture. The rest of the afternoon was exactly what I expected. Everyone gathered around Connor asking about Los Angeles, his auditions, his role on the show. My parents beamed with pride, showing everyone pictures and videos from Connor's commercial appearances. Nobody asked me about my job. Nobody asked about my life. At one point, my Uncle Rick, the one who'd offered me the secretary position, pulled me aside. Madison, your mom said you turned down the job I offered. What happened? I got a position somewhere else, I said. Where? Pacific Northwest Financial Group. He frowned. What are you doing there? Customer service? No, I'm in their executive training program. He looked skeptical. Executive training? Are you sure? Those programs are really competitive. I'm aware. Well, good for you. I hope it works out. But if it doesn't, the offer at my office still stands. We could always use someone reliable. I smiled tightly. Thanks, Uncle Rick. Later, my father gathered everyone for the family photo. We all squeezed together on the back deck, and my mother fussed over making sure Connor and Amber were front and center. I stood in the back row, barely visible behind my taller cousins. The photographer counted down. 3, 2, 1. The shutter clicked, and just like that, I was part of the family photo but still completely invisible. That night, driving back to Seattle, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger, sadness, but also determination. I realized something important. I didn't need my family to see me. I didn't need their validation or approval, but I wanted them to know what they'd missed. I wanted them to realize, eventually, that they'd underestimated me, and I was willing to work as hard as I needed to make that happen. 14 months into the program, Carmen Hernandez called me into her office. I'd just finished my rotation in investment services and was preparing to move into my final rotation in operations. I had no idea what this meeting was about, but Carmen's expression was unreadable. Sit down, Madison. I sat, my heart pounding. I've been reviewing performance evaluations from all your rotations, she said, flipping through a folder on her desk. Every single manager you've worked under has given you the highest possible ratings. Paul Mendoza said you have the best analytical instincts he's seen in a decade. Keisha said you have a natural gift for client relationships, and Douglas Brennan personally requested that you be assigned to his team after the program ends. I felt my cheeks flush. I've worked really hard. I can see that, which is why I'm making you an offer. She slid a document across the desk. I picked it up and scanned it. It was a job offer. Assistant Vice President, Commercial Lending Division. Salary, $95,000. Benefits, performance bonuses. A clear path to Vice President within 3 years. I stared at the paper, my hands shaking slightly. "This is 4 months early," I said. "The program doesn't end until October." "I know, but we don't want to risk losing you to another bank. You're too talented. If you accept this offer, you'll start immediately. You'll report directly to Douglas and work on structuring deals for mid-market commercial clients." I looked up at her. "I accept." She smiled, something I'd rarely seen her do. "I thought you might. Welcome to the team, Madison." Officially. I walked out of her office in a daze. I'd done it. I'd not only completed the program early, I'd been promoted into a leadership track position at one of the most prestigious banks in the region. I wanted to tell someone. I wanted to celebrate. But when I pulled out my phone, I realized I didn't know who to call. Kelsey, my best friend from college, was traveling in Europe. My other close friends were scattered across the country, busy with their own careers. And my family? They didn't even know I'd been in the training program. I decided to wait. I'd tell them eventually. But for now, this achievement was mine. I spent the next 6 months proving I deserved the promotion. I worked on complex commercial deals, analyzed credit risk, and built relationships with business owners across the Pacific Northwest. I was good at my job. Really good. My reputation within the bank grew quickly. Senior executives started knowing my name. Colleagues asked for my input on deals. Douglas began assigning me to high-profile clients. One afternoon, he called me into his office. "Madison, I need you to lead a pitch meeting with a potential client. It's a regional healthcare company looking for a $15 million credit facility. They're meeting with 3 banks. We need to win this deal." "I can do that." "I know you can. That's why I'm putting you in charge." The meeting was the following week. I prepared for days, researching the company, their financials, their industry. I built a presentation that demonstrated exactly how our bank could support their growth while managing risk. When the day came, I walked into the conference room with confidence I'd earned. Presented for 45 minutes, answered every question, and made it clear why Pacific Northwest Financial Group was the right choice. 2 days later, we won the deal. Douglas shook my hand afterward. "That was a masterclass, Madison. You're going places." But the biggest validation came a month later when Carmen called me back into her office. "We're opening a new branch in Bellevue," she said. "It's going to focus on serving high-net-worth individuals and small to mid-sized businesses. We need someone to manage it. Someone smart, driven, and capable of building a team from scratch. I'm offering you the role of branch president." I nearly fell out of my chair. "Branch president? Carmen, I'm 25. I'm aware. But age doesn't matter. Capability does. You've proven yourself over and over. You're ready." "What about people who've been here longer?" "They're not you. This is a big opportunity, Madison. It comes with a significant raise, full management authority, and a chance to make your mark. Are you interested?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes." "Good. You start in 6 weeks." I left her office feeling like I was floating. Branch president, at 25. It was almost unbelievable, and for the first time, I wanted my family to know. I decided to tell my family at Thanksgiving. Connor was coming home from Los Angeles, and my parents had insisted I join them for dinner. I'd avoided family gatherings for over a year, but this time felt different. I had something worth sharing. I arrived at my parents' house in Spokane on Thanksgiving afternoon. The house smelled like roasted turkey and pumpkin pie. My mother was in the kitchen, frantically finishing last-minute preparations. My father was in the living room watching football. Connor was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through his phone. When he saw me, he jumped up and hugged me. "Maddie, it's been forever." "Hey, Connor. How's the show going?" "It's good. They renewed me for another season. My character's getting more screen time. People are recognizing me on the street. It's wild." "That's amazing." My mother came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. "Madison, you're here. Finally. Come help me set the table." We moved through dinner preparations like we'd done 100 times before. Small talk, updates about relatives, stories about Connor's life in Los Angeles. Nobody asked me a single question. Finally, we sat down to eat. My father carved the turkey while my mother served side dishes. Connor launched into a story about a celebrity he'd met on set. I sat quietly, eating my mashed potatoes, waiting for the right moment. When there was a lull in the conversation, I spoke up. "So, I have some news." Everyone looked at me. My mother smiled politely. My father raised his eyebrows. Connor looked mildly curious. "I got promoted at work." "Oh, that's nice, honey," my mother said. "What are you doing now?" I took a breath. "I'm the president of a new branch at Pacific Northwest Financial Group. I'm managing a team, overseeing operations, and handling relationships with high-net-worth clients and businesses." Silence. My father frowned. "Wait. What? What are you talking about?" "I've been working at Pacific Northwest Financial Group for the past 2 years. I completed their executive training program and got promoted to assistant vice president. Now, I'm branch president." My mother's fork clattered onto her plate. "Madison, what are you saying? You told us you were job hunting." "No. You assumed I was job hunting. I never said that." Connor leaned forward. "Wait, you're running a bank branch? How is that even possible? You're like 25. I'm 25. And yes, I'm running a branch." My father shook his head. "This doesn't make sense. Banks don't just hand leadership roles to kids fresh out of college. They do if you prove yourself." Which I did. My mother looked genuinely confused. "Why didn't you tell us?" I set down my fork and looked at her directly. "Because you never asked." For the past 2 years, every conversation we've had has been about Connor. His auditions, his commercials, his TV show. Nobody asked me what I was doing. Nobody cared. "That's not true," my mother said, her voice rising. "We care about you." "Then why didn't you notice I was building a career? Why didn't you ask about my job? Why didn't you come to my college graduation and actually pay attention?" My father's face reddened. "Madison, that's enough. You're being dramatic." "No, I'm being honest. You've spent my entire life focused on Connor. And that's fine. But don't pretend you were paying attention to me, because you weren't." Connor looked uncomfortable. "Maddie, I didn't know you felt this way." "Of course you didn't. Nobody asked." The table fell silent. My mother's eyes filled with tears. My father looked angry. Connor stared at his plate. I stood up. "I came here to tell you about my promotion because I thought maybe you'd be proud. But it's pretty clear that unless it's about Connor, it doesn't matter." "Madison, sit down," my father ordered. "No, I'm done. I've built a career you know nothing about. I've succeeded in ways you never bothered to notice, and I don't need your approval anymore. I just wanted you to know." I grabbed my coat and walked out. Nobody followed me. I sat in my car for a long moment, gripping the steering wheel, my heart racing. Part of me felt guilty, but a larger part felt free. I'd said what I needed to say. And now I could move on. The Bellevue branch opened in January, and I threw myself into the work completely. I hired a team of 10 people: loan officers, financial advisors, customer service representatives. I trained them personally, making sure they understood not just the technical aspects of banking, but the philosophy I wanted our branch to embody: excellence, integrity, client focus. We targeted small business owners and professionals who were underserved by larger corporate banks, people who wanted personalized service, creative solutions, and someone who actually understood their needs. Within 6 months, our branch exceeded every performance target the bank had set. We brought in $40 million in new deposits. We funded 30 commercial loans. We grew our client base by 300%. The success didn't go unnoticed. Carmen called me one afternoon. "Madison, the executive team wants to meet with you. They're impressed with what you've done in Bellevue." The meeting was the following week. I walked into a conference room where the CEO, the CFO, and 3 other senior executives were waiting. The CEO, a man named Richard Cross, gestured to a chair. "Madison, sit. We've been watching your branch closely. You've done something remarkable. You've built a profitable operation from scratch in record time. That takes vision and leadership." "Thank you. We want to expand what you've done. We're planning to open 3 more branches in the next 18 months, all focused on the same market segment you've been targeting. And we want you to oversee all of them. You'd be Senior Vice President of Regional Operations. You'd manage 4 branch presidents, report directly to me, and have full authority to execute your strategy." I felt my pulse quicken. That's an incredible opportunity. It is. And we think you're the right person for it. What do you say? I say yes. Richard smiled. Good. We'll finalize the details and announce it next month. I walked out of that meeting feeling like I was in a dream. Senior Vice President at 26. I'd gone from invisible daughter to banking executive in less than 3 years. But the best part? I'd done it entirely on my own. Meanwhile, my family situation remained complicated. After Thanksgiving, my mother called repeatedly. I ignored most of the calls, but eventually I listened to a voicemail. "Madison, I've been thinking about what you said. I'm sorry if we made you feel invisible. That was never our intention. Your father and I love you. We're proud of you. Please call me back." I didn't call back. Not yet. Connor reached out too. He sent a text. "Maddie, I'm sorry. I didn't realize how bad things were. Can we talk?" I replied. "I need time, Connor, but I appreciate the apology." A month later, my promotion to Senior Vice President was announced internally and then covered in the local business press. The Seattle Times ran an article about the bank's expansion strategy, and I was featured prominently. The headline read, "At 26, Madison Riley is redefining leadership in Pacific Northwest banking." The article included a photo of me in my office, along with quotes from Richard about my vision and impact. The day it was published, my phone exploded. Former classmates, professors, colleagues, everyone congratulating me. And then, finally, my mother called. I answered. "Madison, I saw the article. I can't believe this. You're a senior vice president at 26? "Yes." "Why didn't you tell us?" "I tried to, at Thanksgiving. You didn't believe me." She was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry. You're right. We should have listened. We should have asked. I'm proud of you, Madison. Really proud." "Thank you, Mom." "Can we see you? Your father and I want to take you to dinner. We want to hear about everything." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no, but another part of me, the part that still craved their approval even though I didn't need it, said yes. "Okay. Dinner. But on my terms. In Seattle. Next Saturday. We'll be there." The dinner was at a nice restaurant overlooking Elliott Bay. I chose the place deliberately. Somewhere elegant, professional, and far from the casual family dinners of my childhood. My parents arrived on time, looking nervous. My father wore a suit, which was unusual. My mother had clearly spent extra time on her hair and makeup. We sat down, ordered drinks, and for a few minutes, nobody spoke. Finally, my father cleared his throat. Madison, we read the article multiple times, and we've been doing a lot of thinking. About what? About how we treated you, how we didn't pay attention, how we made everything about Connor. My mother nodded. We took you for granted, sweetheart. We assumed you'd be fine because you were always so independent and capable. But that wasn't fair. You deserved our support. I looked at both of them. You're right. It wasn't fair. I spent my entire life trying to get you to notice me, and when I finally stopped trying, I realized I didn't need you to notice me. I just needed to believe in myself. My father's eyes were red. We're sorry, Madison. Truly. I appreciate that. But apologies don't change the past. They don't erase the years I felt invisible. We know, my mother said. But we want to do better moving forward. We want to be part of your life, if you'll let us. I took a sip of my wine, considering. If you want to be part of my life, here's what that looks like. You ask me about my work. You show genuine interest. You don't compare me to Connor, and you respect my boundaries. We can do that, my father said. Can you? Yes. I nodded slowly. Okay. Then let's try. The rest of the dinner was tentative but real. They asked questions about my job, the branches I was managing, and my plans for the future. I told them about the challenges of leadership, the satisfaction of building something from scratch, and the goals I had for the next 5 years. For the first time in my life, they listened. When we parted ways, my mother hugged me tightly. I love you, Madison, and I'm so proud of you. I love you too, Mom. My father shook my hand, then pulled me into a hug. You've accomplished incredible things. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. Thank you, Dad. I drove home that night feeling lighter. The conversation hadn't fixed everything. Years of hurt didn't disappear with one dinner. But it was a start. And for the first time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, my family was beginning to see me. 6 months into my new role as Senior Vice President, I faced my biggest challenge yet. One of our branch presidents, a man named Greg, who'd been with the company for 15 years, wasn't performing. His branch was missing targets, losing clients, and morale was tanking. Richard called me into his office. Madison, we need to make a change with Greg. He's not adapting to the new strategy. I want you to handle it. You want me to fire him? I want you to have a conversation. Give him a chance to improve. But if he can't, yes, we'll need to transition him out. It was the hardest conversation I'd ever had. Greg was defensive at first, then angry, then finally resigned. I've been here 15 years, he said. And now some kid who's been here 3 years is telling me I'm not good enough? It's not about tenure, Greg. It's about results. And right now, your branch isn't delivering. Maybe your strategy doesn't work for everyone. Then help me understand what would work better. I'm not here to push you out. I'm here to help you succeed. But you have to be willing to change. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he sighed. I'll think about it. 2 weeks later, Greg resigned. It was a tough loss, but it taught me an important lesson about leadership. Sometimes, making the hard decisions was part of the job. I replaced Greg with Sarah, a talented loan officer from another branch who was hungry for opportunity. Within 3 months, her branch was back on track. Meanwhile, my relationship with my family continued to improve. Slowly. My parents called regularly now. They asked about work. They remembered details. They even came to visit me in Seattle and toured my branch. Connor and I rebuilt our relationship too. He apologized multiple times for not seeing how our parents' favoritism had hurt me. I was so caught up in my own life, he said during one conversation. I didn't realize how bad it was for you. I'm sorry, Maddie. I forgive you, Connor. You weren't the problem. The dynamic was. Still, I should have noticed. Maybe, but you notice now. That's what matters. He started asking me for advice about managing money, planning for the future, and building financial stability. I helped him set up a retirement account, create a budget, and think long-term. It felt good to be seen not just as Connor's little sister, but as someone with knowledge and value. 3 years after I became senior vice president, Richard called me into his office again. Madison, I have news. I'm retiring in 6 months. I was stunned. What? Why? I'm 68. I've been doing this for 40 years. It's time. But before I go, I need to make sure this company is in good hands. Okay. The board has been discussing succession planning. We've considered internal candidates and external options, and we've made a decision. My heart started pounding. We want to offer you the position of president and CEO. I stared at him, speechless. You're 29 years old, he continued, which is young, but you've demonstrated leadership, vision, and results that most people don't achieve in a lifetime. You've transformed this bank, and we believe you're the right person to lead it into the future. Richard, I don't know what to say. Say yes. I took a deep breath. Yes. He smiled. Good. We'll announce it in 4 weeks. And Madison, you've earned this. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The announcement sent shockwaves through the industry. At 29, I became one of the youngest bank presidents in the country. The media coverage was intense. Articles, interviews, people analyzing how someone so young could reach such a position. Some of the coverage was positive. A new generation of leadership. Proof that merit matters more than tenure. Some was skeptical. Is she ready? Can she handle the pressure? I didn't let it bother me. I knew what I was capable of. My parents called immediately after the announcement. Madison, we can't believe this. President and CEO? At your age? Believe it, Mom. I earned it. We never doubted you, my father said. I smiled. Actually, you did. But that's okay. I didn't need you to believe in me. I believed in myself. There was a pause. Then my mother said softly, You're right. And we're sorry. But we believe in you now. I know. Thank you. Connor sent a text. Little sister is running a bank. I'm so freaking proud of you. You're a legend. I smiled at my phone. For years, I'd wanted my family to see me, to celebrate me, to be proud of me. And now they did. But the truth was, their pride didn't define me anymore. I'd built something incredible without their approval. I'd proven myself on my own terms. Their recognition was nice, but it was no longer necessary. I was enough, with or without them. My first year as CEO was transformative. I implemented new strategies focused on financial inclusion, helping underserved communities access banking services. I invested in technology to modernize our systems. I built partnerships with local businesses and nonprofits. Under my leadership, the bank grew by 30%. We opened 6 new branches. We hired 200 employees. We became known as one of the most innovative regional banks in the country. But more importantly, I created a culture where people felt valued, where talent mattered more than tenure, where ambition was encouraged. I thought about my own journey often, the years I'd felt invisible, the hard work I'd put in without recognition, the moment I decided to stop seeking approval and start building my own path. And I made sure that every person who worked for me knew they were seen. One afternoon, I was reviewing performance reports when my assistant buzzed me. Madison, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important. Who is it? Her name is Emily Chen. She says she's a recent college graduate. I almost said I didn't have time, but something made me pause. Send her in. A young woman walked into my office, nervous but determined. She was wearing a slightly wrinkled suit and carrying a portfolio. Ms. Riley, thank you for seeing me. I know you're busy. It's okay. What can I do for you? I'm a finance major. I just graduated from the University of Washington. I've applied to dozens of banks, but nobody's hiring. I saw an article about you, about how you started in a training program and worked your way up, and I thought maybe you'd understand what it's like to be underestimated. I leaned back in my chair. Why do you think you're underestimated? Because I don't have connections. I didn't go to an Ivy League school. My family doesn't work in finance. I'm just smart and willing to work harder than anyone else. But nobody gives me a chance. I smiled. That sounds familiar. So, can you help me? I don't need a handout, just an opportunity. I looked at her, seeing myself 7 years ago, hungry, determined, invisible. Emily, we don't have openings in the training program right now, but I'm going to create one. For you. You'll start next month. Work hard, prove yourself, and you'll go far. Her eyes filled with tears. Thank you. You have no idea what this means. Actually, I do. After she left, I sat at my desk and thought about how far I'd come. From the invisible daughter to the bank president. From seeking approval to creating opportunities. From being overlooked to being a leader. I picked up my phone and called my mother. Madison, how are you, sweetheart? I'm good, Mom, really good. I just wanted to tell you something. What's that? I forgive you. For everything. And I'm grateful. Grateful? Yeah, because your lack of support taught me to support myself. And that made me stronger than I ever would have been otherwise. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I love you, Madison. And I'm so proud of who you've become. I love you too, Mom. I hung up and looked out my office window at the Seattle skyline. My parents had wanted me to get a stable job. Instead, I became the president of a bank. Not because they pushed me, but because I pushed myself. And that made all the difference. You know what's funny? For years, I thought I needed my family to see me to validate my worth. I thought their approval would make my achievements feel real. But the truth is, I didn't need them to see me. I needed to see myself. I needed to recognize my own value, my own potential, my own strength. And once I did, nothing could stop me. Not their indifference, not their favoritism, not their doubts. I built a career that exceeded every expectation, even my own. And I did it by refusing to let anyone else's perception of me define my reality. So if you're the overlooked one, the invisible one, the one nobody believes in, listen to me. You don't need their approval. You don't need their validation. You just need to believe in yourself and work harder than anyone thinks you're capable of. Because when you do, you don't just prove them wrong. You build something so extraordinary that their opinions become irrelevant. My name is Madison Riley. I'm 29 years old, and I'm the president and CEO of one of the fastest growing banks in the Pacific Northwest. My parents wanted me to get a stable job. I became the bank president instead, and I did it entirely on my own terms.